you have to realize that, it is a show inspired by my life, so not everything is true.
Right.
You can't fact check everything in the show, because at the end of the day, to make a show that is compelling to, a 60-year-old, black man DMing me saying, "Hey, I love your story," to like a 13-year-old like white girl saying, "Hey, I love your story," like you have to allow for that creative freedom. So
Sure.
it was trusting the writer's room to to make Spencer James somebody that I would want to stand beside.
Oh, there he is.
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How's everything?
Good, good, my brother. Um, Thank you for joining. It's a lot
Yeah.
going on. I feel like there's a lot to talk about with you. First of all, you're like Black Love fam. Going back, you already did Couch Conversation season 2. You're on Black Love next week, next Friday. Um, and then all the other things you got going on. So for those who don't know, if you don't know, this is the man himself, Spencer Paysinger, CW's All-American producer, but also the storyline is based roughly all the
Inspired
way
by. Yeah,
inspired
we
by
you can say inspired by.
inspired by your story. You've also produced a recent thing that I actually want to touch on, All American Stories,
Hmm.
um, which was great. Hilltop investor, producer, father of 2, beautiful young girl, beautiful young boy, husband, of course, and one of my favorites, former G-Men. Uh, so originally uh, born and
Nice,
raised in New York, so Giants fan for life.
nice to meet
Yeah,
you there. Yeah.
yeah, likewise, likewise. So yeah, again, like I said, so therefore there's just a lot to talk about. One thing I'll start with, since we are in May, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So back with the Couch Conversation season 2, you and your wife were able to be open and
Mhm.
candid, and thank you for that, about speaking to depression that your wife had. But you didn't speak so much about, you mentioned you had some challenges,
Yes.
especially, while still being on the field and figuring out those challenges while, she was dealing with depression. You had your own things to deal with, but you couldn't really deal with them. Um, and I'm just curious to know, yeah, like what were your ways of dealing with that, and just wanted to be able to speak to that a little bit, and try to understand, and I want to understand more so from your perspective, because the episode seemed to be more about her. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but would love
No
to
worries.
hear, from you, like what were you dealing with at that time? One, to support her, and then two, just dealing with your own challenges.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that time that, a few years ago, when the time frame that she was talking about was before we even had our first daughter,
Huh.
or our only daughter actually. So for me during that time, I was starting to realize that football for myself has sort of run its course in the NFL. I felt there was, I've done everything I can do. My energy and my like exploration of the sport has sort of just run its course. So,
Sure.
that's when All American, the initial idea was starting to kick up, and football just kind of became a job for me. It wasn't something that like I woke up every morning like loving to do anymore. So uh, that coupled with, my wife, then girlfriend, moving out to New York and then Miami with me, and then falling into that bit of depression, like not knowing who or where she was in the world. I felt for me like, okay, I'm gonna put as much as I can to the side on my plate and try to pour into her as much as possible. But since then, it's been great. We've had 2 kids, loving household, and we've been full steam ahead since then.
Awesome. Awesome. Were there any, like, did you guys, either her, yourself, have therapy at all? Were there any, like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be therapy necessary, but I always ask this question because I'm always looking to understand, and everybody has a different path, how you overcame these things. Like, what was the aha moment where you said, okay, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to get over it?
Yeah, I think so early on we didn't discuss therapy in that sense. We've always been relatively open to each other. She's accepted me from day one back in high school when we met, of being just like this goofy kid that can talk about anything. I never had a problem like shuttering my feelings from her. Like I was always open
Hmm.
to her in that aspect. But once we started dating and realizing that this could be something more, we just leaned into it that much more. We talked openly about our feelings towards each other. We talked about when we felt like one wasn't pouring into the other efficiently. And that actually that had us straight for years. It wasn't until COVID hit to where we really had to sit down together in a house with
Hmm.
two kids to realize like, oh, now is the time to start, adjusting, tweaking little things within our relationship. But early on, we still do have a great relationship of just like open communication.
No, it's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's not it's not always the case. So so what were the tweaks? You said during COVID there were some things that you did have to tweak.
Yeah, it's just, when you're, obviously all of us have been through it, but just
Sure.
being, sort of, quarantined for the past almost year and a half now, things started to go on autopilot. It
Hmm.
was, there's us, there's the kids, and there's the house, and all three things have to move forward. But we found that in the day to day of dealing with the kids, dealing with the home, dealing with our own jobs and whatnot, that we were putting us to the side. When we had kids, we always said, we wanted to make sure that our kids understand that Spencer and Blair still exist. It's
Yeah.
not mom and dad.
Right.
But definitely there were times where, maybe I wasn't exactly, pouring into her as much as I could, vice versa. So, and again, those are moments where, after a few days of trying to understand what the emotions that we were feeling towards each other were, we were open and honest with each other. A lot of like late night talks, a lot of early morning conversations, but at the end of the day, we realized that we had to give some type of percentage to what COVID was doing to us.
Hmm.
On one hand, it allowed me to like sit home and watch my son grow from, a toddler that could barely walk and talk to like today is literally his first day of school. My wife is
Oh
picking
wow.
him up right now.
Wow.
So,
Beautiful.
there were absolutely like pros and cons that came with COVID, but we actually realized like, you know, we're we've known each other forever. This month we're celebrating, I don't want to mess it up, our fifth year of marriage. But we realized like,
Congrats.
yeah, there are definitely some things that we can still learn about each other moving forward.
Sure, sure. And you've mentioned this phrase a few times, pouring in.
Hmm.
So, and I haven't heard that before. So, is there something more to this pouring in that you can expand on? What does that
You know,
mean for you and Blair?
yeah, I think just naturally it's, whenever you have a cup, it's a whole cup half full, cup half empty. For us, it's free flowing. Sometimes it's empty,
Hmm.
sometimes it's overflowing. So it's just always being cognizant of if we are doing enough for each other to where the other person feels fulfilled. Like that's just it at the end of the day. I never want her to look at me and her say like, hey, you're not coming to the plate with your fatherly duties, your duties as a husband and just as Spencer. So it's just always being cognizant of that.
No, I love that. I love that. I feel like that's huge, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier about that communication, that open flow. I think it's so important to be able to keep that and to kind of be like this water and have you're going to have the
Yeah.
ebbs and flows, you're going to have the challenges, but being open, being communicative, and not shutting down.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be good days and bad days. So you just got to roll with it.
Are there things? So speaking of the littles, how old is your son and your daughter?
So my daughter turns 4 in 2 weeks and my son turns 2 in July. So we've,
Wow.
we've been in
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got
Yeah.
your hands full. I mean, I have one 3-year-old daughter, but you got twice the fun.
Oh, but you know what those threes are.
I'm finding it out. So she just turned 3 a couple months ago. So now I know what the threes are. And I thought it was about
Oh,
the
there you
twos,
go.
but it's about the threes. The twos
It's
is a
about
setup for the
children.
threes. Yeah.
There's like something with twos, threes, fours, five. It's about children at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Is there something so with the pouring in? So I still want to I want to keep on that theme because that's
Yeah.
interesting. I want to know, does that pour over into how you deal with your children? So how do are there things that you take from that that you then convey with your children?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're like overly like gushy with our kids. Like we like hugging in front of them. We like talking, positively in front of them. It's to the point now in our household where like we can't hug each other, me and my wife, without our kids running up to try to get in on the fun. So it's just that it's doing as much as we can to cultivate that family atmosphere for them. Obviously, for them it's been great. They're too young to sort of feel what being away from school for a year can feel like. um,
Sure.
but but they're old enough to understand that if they see what's happening in the household, like they will mimic that in life. So we're just really intentional on showering them with love, but also holding them accountable for what they're doing and not doing. If my daughter messes up, I'll sit her down and tell her, explain to her like why she messed up and what are the ramifications of this. I don't just want to say, hey, stop doing that, and then that's it. Like, to me, you have to explain to your kids the why behind everything, because then that just develops their idea of the world and how it works.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Do you think now the trick is for the longevity to be able to do that? Do you feel like, I mean, look, we're taking it day by day. I'll
Yeah.
already give you that out. But do you see any things in the future that you may be adding to that? Or are you just like, I'm going to take it day by day, but this is the blueprint for how we approach parenting?
Yeah, I think overall it's accountability. It's accountability and empathy. Those are the
Hmm.
two biggest things for me. Like I want my son and daughter to understand that if somebody doesn't look like you, talk like you, act like you, anything like that, you can still empathize with them on a deeper level than what you
Yeah.
would see.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like workload and getting things done, I come from a very team centric sport, so it doesn't matter how my feelings are towards a certain thing. It's the end goal, it's the end team goal. So I always want them to be just to be whatever job is theirs within that team goal or a solo goal, like be accountable for their actions at the end of the day.
I love that. So there's something interesting as you're saying all of this because you do have a football background. You did play for my favorite team. You are, you are the inspiration for All American. Um, Yet you're open, you're vulnerable. Is this something and empathetic, which I love and totally identify with in terms of approach for parenting and just as a human and as a black man? Do
Yeah.
you feel you've always had this, or is there something that kind of someone's, or an event, or events, or experiences that brought you to this place of being more open and vulnerable and empathetic for that matter? Because again, you think typical, football player, there's a certain mindset as
Yeah.
an athlete, certain mindset. It's go, 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 emotionalist. The only time you cry is when you hold up that trophy or if you lose the
Yeah.
championship. But anything in between, you're just yelling, screaming, getting rough and tough. So they say. Because again, you've just
Yeah.
broken the mold just in this conversation. So
No, I think I've always had a version of this within me. Even from a young age, I knew that football was literally just a sport in my world, and that's a testament to my family early on. I
yeah,
was really big into art growing up. I've won art competitions when I was growing up, whether it's school and at different companies outside of it. But my parents never restricted me. They never said like, "Hey, you're only going to be a football player or a basketball player, or sports is the only way that you're going to get out of here." They allowed me to just explore, to understand that sports is literally just one component, to the point where when I got to college, I would credit I call him my first mentor, James Harris, who, he saw me doing some things in school, I was an econ major, and just like taking in that college experience. And he was like, hey, I want to, again, pour into you.
yeah,
So here's a book. I want you to meet with this guy who runs a business. I want you to learn how this business is ran. So I guess it's just always understanding that the world was bigger than that field that I was playing on, to the point where, I just never really subscribed to the idea that, I have to play football for 10 to 15 years, retire, and then like rest on my laurels. It was always after football was done, even by day or by season, my mind was gone from it. I was
sure.
then a husband, I was then a father, I was then, an intern or job shadowing, just doing something to like compartmentalize football away from me. Like I never really considered it my entire being. So I guess that kind of answers your question, but yeah, I never really subscribed to the idea that I just had to play football. I just had to be this certain way because we've seen it on TV or whatnot from other examples.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. So you mentioned a mentor. I mean, what was he in football, or what was how did you connect and with your mentor and getting this?
Yeah, yeah. I think he might even be on here. I saw he wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
pop on yesterday, but so James Harris, he came to Oregon. I believe it was my second year there, and he came in as a nutritionist from Nebraska, but he just
Okay.
had the players' ears. That he had that office that was always open. You could pop in between classes and kick up your feet with him for an hour or two, or he was always grabbing lunch or whatever. So you just that walking and talking type person that you want to trust within the coaching ranks. A lot of
Sure.
times you have those coaches that are bulls that you can't trust, but there's always one or two with an organization that just has the respect of a lot of the players, and he was that. So just little by little, we started having more and more open conversations about life, about career, about just opportunity in general. And yeah, he took a liking to me. Started, he was throwing books my way, telling me to read articles. I did like technically like internships for him and stuff. But yeah, outside of my family, I would credit him to being my first mentor that kind of set me on this path.
Hmm, that's amazing. I do like the fact that you were, I mean, again, through this mentor, through your family and upbringing, being able to separate, being able to compartmentalize. And I feel like, you know, as men, as people in general, but men more specifically, there's a certain level of identity and certain types of
Hmm.
identities that we're either told we're supposed to be, like you were talking about, like we were talking
Yes.
about with football, as an athlete, as a man, as a black man, as just all of these different identities. And the fact that you are able to and are able to compartmentalize that, I think, is amazing. And I think that's a testament for others listening, watching right now to be able to take that as like a gem, because I do because I do think it's so important. Like I don't, again, just in this space, and you mentioned COVID earlier. I think especially during that window, this window, it it all can become a mesh, just like
Hmm.
one hodgepodge of a day, and it's like all the things just overlap into one thing. Um, are there certain things you're doing on a daily basis, like on a conscious effort? Um, like now, day to day, I usually ask the fellas who join this if you have some type of routine, whether it's a morning routine or just some
Hmm.
some type of daily routine that like either sets you up for the day, sets you up mentally, or otherwise.
Yeah, I think I've gone through a wave of different type of routines over this course of COVID. Like before COVID, it was wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning before the house wakes up, get an hour or two workout in, maybe run around the neighborhood, shower, then get the kids up. But lately, I've been trying to like relieve myself of the stress of the routine because I found myself at
Hmm.
times if one thing went off schedule or didn't go the way I wanted to, it would kind of have a ripple effect throughout my day. So like right now within the past month, I've done sort of a reset. I'm on like day 23 of Whole 30, so no
Oh,
soy,
nice.
no
Yeah,
sugar,
yeah, I've done
no
that. That's
yeah,
tough,
no
bro. That's
alcohol, no
tough.
nothing.
That's tough.
But yeah, it just came from the idea of like, I feel like the world hopefully is opening back up soon. I just wanted a clear mind going back into it. And with that
Yeah,
clear
yeah.
mind meant not forcing myself to work out to reach some type of goal that I set for myself in terms of body image or mental or whatever. It was seeing if there are just different things that I can try right now that can help add to that routine when the world opens back up. So I haven't worked out in like a month and a half. I thought I'd feel like, I
What?
like shit,
Yeah,
but like I feel great. I'm down like 15 pounds right now, and I haven't touched the weight in over a month. I'm like, I'm gonna keep this going. But yeah,
crazy.
it's just been yeah, it's just been specifically this past month. It's been a lot of trial and error of what I feel comfortable with, what I you know control. I knowingly want to give up. I'm the type of guy that like if I have to clean something, I have to do it right now. If I have to do something, I have to do it right then. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just kind of like catching myself in those moments of when I'm forcing myself to do something and saying, no, let me pull back and get to it when I can get to it, not trying to force it. So I'm just, yeah, just in a recalibration mode.
Nah, I love that. I love that. And I think that also speaks to, we all have different things that make us tick, that work for us, that don't work for us. So, that's the other thing. I don't like hearing somebody just give like this canned answer of, and again, I'm glad that you just remain open and honest about it and not working out. Like I didn't expect you to say that. I didn't work out for a month and a half. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, I
like you
mean,
said, it's all about recalibration.
yeah,
But go
when I
ahead. What
usually
were we
worked
saying?
out, it was when I usually work out, it was I haven't necessarily like touched hard weights like metal, like benching and squatting and stuff for probably about 2 years
Yeah.
or so. But
Yeah.
my working out now has been mainly Peloton, yoga,
Hmm.
active stretching, band work, stuff like that. But I would find myself even though those workouts aren't as strenuous on the body, come Wednesday or Thursday when I still need to get through the week in terms of meeting and whatnot, I was just breaking down
Yeah.
mentally, physically, everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna force myself to relax a little bit. I'm gonna force myself not to have that 5:30 routine, 6 o'clock routine, and see what happens when I do wake up at 7:30, when I
Hmm.
do get that extra hour and a half. And for the most part, it's been great. So right now it's finding that balance because I know I'm sharper when I do get that morning sweat in.
Yeah.
But just finding that balance right now of where's the workout and where's the rest, and how can I kind of bring those together to where I'm not, dead by the end of the week. So that's where I'm at right now.
No, I love it. I love it. And all of it matters. The sleep matters. The break in the sweat matters. Is there anything on a, you don't have to go here if you don't want to. I'm just asking a question. Because I usually try to tap in, I'll just be honest, to mind,
Yeah,
body, soul. So is there anything on a spiritual level that you do?
yeah. So I've been meditating more, not as consistently as I want to right now,
Sure.
but if I can get 10 to 20 minutes in the middle of the day, I'm trying to switch that to the morning time as well. But it gets to the point where there's just too many checks I'm trying to check
Yeah.
off in the
Yep.
morning. So I definitely like that midday meditation. It
Hmm.
kind of gets me through the evening. Obviously, handling the kids after they get home from school.
Yeah.
But then also, spiritually and just mentally seeing a therapist. I finally, cracked that mode
Huh.
of saying I'm going to. I've always been open to seeing a therapist. I've always talked openly about it. I've had random sessions here and there, but I've always allowed myself to go, oh, today's been a good day, so there's no need to reach out to that therapist I've been
Right.
wanting to talk to. Or
Right.
today's a bad day, now let's go talk to them, but then let me wait a couple of hours and reassess. About a month ago, I was finally like, you know what? It's like now's the time to do it. If I'm in this reset, if I'm changing a lot of things around in my life, like why not make this part of that new normal? So tomorrow is actually like my first official meeting with my therapist.
Dope. Dope.
Yeah,
Well, congrats on that. One,
thank you.
a lot of success. I'm sure you will have success. It's usually those that are open to the things get the success out of it. No,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Love that. So now, just putting all of this because I'm trying to find a segue here to
Yeah.
get to the All American because I also want to understand with all of this. And again, you have already just in this dialogue, a lot of things I wasn't aware of, but broken the mold of that athlete. So what made you say, okay, I want to produce a series that's inspired based on my life?
Yeah, I mean, early on in my career, even dating back to college, I'd always see a new movie every off day. That was sort of my part of my rehab was going to a dark theater, getting my popcorn, my Raisinets, and like a water, and just diving into a story for 2 or so hours. And I realized once I got to the NFL, that became a form of mental healing for me because
Hmm.
as much as you guys know what goes on in the locker room and on the field and in those meeting rooms, I'm telling you, it's 2 or 3 times more than that. You're
Yeah.
learning upwards of 20 new defenses a day with new terminologies, with new adjustments and whatnot. So it's just that. So I really put it on myself to go, you know what, I need to go do something that has nothing to do with football. So I kept that up for years to the point where I started calling out in movies just what was happening. Oh, this is
Yeah.
fake. Oh, that this is a dream sequence. Oh, that's actually the bad guy, whatever. So that just gave me enough motivation to start learning the structure of writing
Hmm.
for TV and film. So that actually became a hobby of mine. Is I'm talking like after games, on flights, coming back home, like I'm reading a script on my iPad, or I'm watching a movie with subtitles, or I'm watching a movie and then writing down like specific moments as to how I want to like see it written. One of the first films I ever read was Pulp Fiction. So then I went back and watched it, and I'm like, oh, this makes total sense how it was written. So just putting myself in that, I was unknowingly, I guess, putting myself in school for those
Yeah.
couple of years, to the point where a good friend of mine and my now producing partner, Dane Mort, that first conversation, when we first met between a mutual friend, we started talking about just growing up in Los Angeles and how it was. He grew up in Palos Verdes and I grew up in South Central, and we both rep Los Angeles to the fullest, but have two completely different ideas of what LA is.
Hmm.
So, it was just a conversation. A few weeks later, he called me and said, "Hey, I can't get this idea out of my head. Like, he has it into Warner Brothers through Robbie Rogers and Greg Berlanti. Let's just see if this can be something." So I wrote up literally a one page, like maybe two paragraph, just this is who I am, this is what I've been through. Goodbye. I got to go play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in
Right.
later.
Yeah.
And that one page was enough to get a meeting with Greg Berlanti's team. I told them some stories of being in South Central with
Yeah.
friends and family, and then going to school in Beverly Hills. And that one meeting was enough for them to say, "Let's explore this." To the point where that was my that was between my before my last year playing football. In my last year playing football, we were developing the initial pilot for All American, and once I got released from the Panthers, I got home and I was like, looked at my wife and I said, "Listen, I think we're going to get this pilot at least ordered to shoot.
Hmm.
That's enough for me to retire." Like at that point, I didn't really want to play football anymore. I knew my mind was away from the game,
Sure.
and it was an honest leap of faith.
Hmm.
Back in
Yeah.
2000, I mean, I retired in December 2017, and by April 2018, we were shooting the pilot. So
Beautiful.
it's kind of been a full sprint from then.
And it's kind of, I mean, does it feel kind of meta for you that, again, your parts of your life are unfolding to millions of people, and you're being vulnerable and you're putting
Yeah.
yourself out there in another way. So in some ways, and I'll leave this for you to answer, is it cathartic in one way? Is it helpful in like amplifying things? Like what's the feeling that you get from this?
I mean, it's everything. It's I've had every emotion towards the show,
Hmm.
both good and bad. Honestly, on one hand, you have to realize that it is a show inspired by my life, so not everything is true.
Right.
You can't fact check everything in the show, because at the end of the day, to make a show that is compelling to a 60-year-old black man DMing me saying, "Hey, I love your story," to like a 13-year-old like white girl saying, "Hey, I love your story," like you have to allow for that creative freedom. So
Sure.
it was trusting the writers' room to to make Spencer James somebody that I would want to stand beside. Understanding that Spencer James is not Spencer Paysinger. Yes, he is technically born from Spencer Paysinger, but at the end of the day, I told Daniel, I told the writers' room, shout out to NK. I was like, let's just make Spencer James as best as we can, because to me, he speaks to not just myself. I never want him to be a beacon for me. I want him to be a beacon towards just growing up in the country today, and all the stressors and just things that this young generation is dealing with. Like, this generation has it tough right now. So if Spencer can do anything like that to represent them in that way, open and honestly, I'm all for it. But I've had moments where I'm like, I'm not that angry. A lot of people ask, like, are you that angry in real life? I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty chill.
Yeah.
But it's just things like that where you never want to expose what's real and what's not on the show, because you want them to ride the wave of the show. It's like going into a movie and somebody leaning over and saying, he dies at the end. Like, I don't want to
Right.
hear that. Like, and I
Right.
don't want to give
Right.
that. I don't want to give that to somebody else. So, I go hush on a lot of the what's real and what's not when it comes to the show, because at the end of the day, I just want everybody to enjoy the show for what it is.
Yeah, no, that's dope. Um, and you touched on just the things that are happening in the world right now. I think something that's commendable is, okay, you're doing that through All American, but you're also doing that with your wife, with Post 21,
Yes.
um, which I think is dope. So for those who don't know, it's the go-to place for the best black-owned anything and everything on the web, and that you can find socially. Is it at Post 21 Shop on the gram? Is that
Yeah,
the handle?
it's yes, it's at Post 21 Shop, and it was an idea that she's had for years, to where she felt like whenever she wanted to support Black owned businesses and creatives, she didn't have one consolidated place to do it. And when she would go to certain sites, um, sometimes the products just, it felt like we were always having to take a step down in quality,
Yeah,
when we all know that, you know, maybe they're not collectively in one place, but there are dope creatives, entrepreneurs, minds out there that are creating these really dope pieces, from, luggage to sunglasses to pottery to like so many great things. So her and her mom started Post 21 about a year or so ago. Their 1 year anniversary is actually June 1st.
nice.
And it's been great. They have, I think, over 60 vendors right now, over like 250 products, and they're literally adding new products every single day. So they're doing a lot of cool things. They've had a bunch of collabs with some pretty notable companies and creatives on Instagram and beyond. So I'm like her assistant. I'm like her second assistant. So like as much as I'm doing in terms of, writing, producing, doing all that, if she needs me, like, hey, you need to pack up 100 of these boxes right now, I'm like, all right, I guess we got to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's been great to see her grow into this space, and yeah, we got some cool things coming up.
Yeah, and I love that because it's something. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people during last year and the uprising and all of that. You know, there were all these lists that were
Yeah,
just going around, and it was cool. It was a good start, but you're like, am I going back to that list? Not
yeah,
really. And it's like
yeah,
that they would just send around all these spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets via
yeah.
social and email. You're like, I'm not really going to that. I don't know what it is. So, and even Cody,
Hmm.
co-founder of Black Love, she said, she was like, yeah, there's just not a website. Is there like a site that just
Yeah,
has like dope black owned product? And
yeah,
lo and behold,
yeah. I mean, our entire just genesis of the idea was that we didn't, especially when everything was happening last summer and even
yeah,
recently with
yeah,
social justices, like you said, a lot of that, clickbait list, or 10
yeah,
places to shop Black owned.
yeah, yeah,
We were like, we have products on this website that can stay beyond clickbait era, can stay beyond the moment.
yeah.
The products that she has on there are amazing. So for all you guys out there, please follow, please like, join the mailing list. We have stuff dropping literally every single week, collabs coming almost every single month. So yeah, Post 21 Shop.
Great. Love that. And you also invest, I mean, like I said, you just all the things, and then you're investing in Hilltop, which is beautiful because, it's in Inglewood. I mean, it's in your backyard, but it's in those places where you don't normally get the Starbucks, and you don't get the cool coffee shop and eatery where you can hang
Yeah,
out and work and things like that.
yeah.
And you have a few locations now, right?
Yeah, we
Throughout
have.
LA?
Yeah, so our coffee shop is Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen. We have three locations, one in, or technically two in Inglewood, one in Eagle Rock, and we do have plans to build out multiple locations over this year and next. But yeah, it was something that, two of my good friends that are entrepreneurs, restaurateurs at that, they came to
Mm-hmm.
us and were like, hey, you know, we have this idea. We think it could be cool. Like, do you guys want to get in? And I've always been grateful for them for including me into it. But it's just a really good idea, because we felt like in the area that we live in, we live in an area that's, one of the richest Black neighborhoods per capita in the country. Yet the options here don't rival those of the Brentwoods, of the Culver cities. They're not as self-sufficient. So,
Sure.
well, my entire, reason for living here is to pump more resources into the area that I've called home for so long. So it's just that we're, starting with a coffee shop. We have a few other ideas cooking up, but just making concepts that, we don't have to pump our chest and say, hey, we're black owned. It's just, no, you're in a dope coffee shop that just so happens to be black owned.
Yeah.
And we want anybody that steps into the shop to feel welcomed, but understand that that music that you're hearing, if it's Maxwell or D'Angelo, like that's not changing. Like
Right.
that's
Right.
who we are.
Yeah.
We're not turning on somebody else. It's we are who we are. We're a dope concept. We have great food, great coffee, great community, and that's just who we are. So if you guys are in the LA area, please stop by Hilltop Coffee and Kitchen.
Yeah, it's dope, man. I like again, I commend you on these efforts because they're not just, you know, yes, you're in business. Yes, your wife is in business, but it's doing things that's also impacting the community, impacting where you grew up, impacting Black community, impacting community at large, men. Again, for you to be able to be open and honest with me on this is beautiful because again, it clearly breaks the stigma of what you think athletes are supposed to be. And, lo and behold, into this conversation, you plowed through what that what that was supposed to look like. And I love it and I appreciate it. And these are the conversations I look to, want to have out there and put out there more so. I wanted to ask just, I mean, you've kind of addressed this already, but just in terms of, I just wanted to go back quickly.
Yeah.
Again, because of your background and because of all of these stigmas you're breaking, just this idea of masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
like what when I say that word, what does that mean to you?
Kind of funny. It's almost like a comedic word now because I mean, earlier on, I remember my brothers and my dad and my family calling me like a metrosexual because
Oh, I remember that
because
was
I
me too.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I used to use Proactive on my skin because I had a skin regimen at like 15 years old
Damn, same.
or just,
Yeah.
or just like, willing, like I scheduled a pedicure for tomorrow. Like these are things that, 10 years ago I was doing that people were like, oh, that's not manly. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
like. You guys can't dictate what masculinity is to me. Like that's
Yeah.
something for myself that it's a relationship that I only need to have with myself. Like I don't need to
Love
necessarily
that.
I don't need to convince another man how they should move, how they should be. As long as I'm comfortable with myself, if they see me, if they see how I present myself or how I'm open and honest and vulnerable, and if they want to do that, by all means. But I don't feel the need to preach to another man to dictate what his understanding of what that word should be. So it's a definition, another definition for another person, for anybody. So for me, it's just understanding that I have my relationship with skincare, with pedicures, with manicures, with being vulnerable with my wife, with being open and honest about my feelings and emotions with my friends that are also black men, black fathers that are raising kids in LA. That's my definition of masculinity, is just being your true self no matter what.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it because I love trying to reimagine this manning up, this
Yeah.
masculinity, this all these words, growing up, and I feel like we are in this pivotal moment, which again I feel grateful to be a part of, and growing up and raising children, well, a child in this era of a time where we get to shift that narrative,
Yeah.
and especially as black men,
Yeah.
because you're like doubly tough, and you in particular, I mean, again, growing up in South Central,
Hmm.
and yet we're talking about manicures and pedicures like it ain't no thing. I love it. I love it. Like this needs to be heard. That's the dopeness. Like that is the new masculinity. And that definition, I got to write that down because that is what the new masculinity should be.
I'm telling you, you get any man into a pedicure chair and get somebody touching their feet and massaging and cutting the cuticles and all that, like it changed the game on that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with it. I'm with it. I think we should do we should do a man-to-man series in the pedi, like how they have the shop with
Yeah, I'm
LeBron.
for it. I'm
All right,
for it.
there we go. There we go. Put that on your production list. We're
I
gonna
get
do
the, I
that.
get the buff and everything. We good
Yeah.
over here.
I love that. Well, I mean, this has been amazing. I have a bunch of other things, but let's save that for part two. If I can get a part two
Yeah.
with you down the road.
Yes, absolutely.
And everybody that's listening, tune in next Friday because this man is on Black Love season 5. So more vulnerability, more openness with you and Blair. I love it. I can't wait to see it. And just all the things you've been doing, man. And like I said, I'm so appreciative of men like you and Black men like you in particular to be out here being so vocal, being so vulnerable,
Yeah.
redefining the thing. I mean, you say yeah, but again, for you,
It's normal. Exactly.
but bro,
It's
there's a conversation I want to have with you offline because there's this what am I trying to say? I hate when this happens, but there's this. I can't get to it. You know what? We're
we'll
gonna
talk
save for a
after.
part
It's
two.
totally
We'll
fine.
talk
Yeah.
out. Yeah, we'll figure it
We got
out.
a part 2, a part 3, part whatever coming. So
Yeah, but
I'll be happy to jump on again.
awesome, awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you, Spencer. Thank you so much, folks. Black Love fam, tune in to see this man next Friday. Tune in to All American. Visit Hilltop when you're in town. Go on
Yes.
post21shop.com. Is that the right website name?
Yes.
Post21shop.com.
Post21shop.com.
Shop.com, excuse me. And all the things that I'm sure are still to come from this man. So again, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being open. Thanks for going man to man with me. And let's talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, brother.
Take care.
You too.